second service. That might need we might need a little more. So here we are with fear and trembling.
They said it couldn't be done.
Oh, I don't think you have sound. We had trouble with that one last week too.
Testing.
Yeah, that's better.
Hello, hello. Oh. Hey, Paige, how do you turn off the
Hey,
harmonizer?
Commissioner! Commissioner Feltz! Commissioner Feltz!
Testing, testing. Yes.
Commissioner Feltz, we're trying to start parables here. Just tease. Yes, I know football is more interesting than I am.
Well, I tend to disagree. I mean, this is the interview that said that couldn't be done. Possibly some said it would never be done.
Or maybe it shouldn't be done.
And after today, it probably should never be done.
Okay. I am not in control, so taking a deep breath. It does, Pat. It does.
It could not be any stranger, any weirder than any other meeting you and I have any time during the week.
Yeah, but now they're all witnessing it.
How do you know that they don't like it? Our meetings should actually be a YouTube channel.
I think we'd be very disappointed in the number of followers that we would get. I don't think people would stick around for that. That's true. That's true. Anna's not here at the moment, but when she came in today, Stuart and I were talking, and she said, "You look like siblings." Like, that is pretty much it. That is the good description of our relationship.
So for those of you who are online and those of you who are here who don't know, my name is Stuart Davenport. I'm the captain of chaos and a general nuisance to the entire congregation of Morningstar. Mm-hmm. And I am here to interview Pastor Amy.
Hi, y'all.
This morning. We had other plans and those went awry. So as often as church is an experiment.
This is
Every
true.
single Sunday, church is an experiment. There's something that we were experiencing with either in front of the scenes or behind the scenes in some shape, way, form, or another. So I have questions. I have lots of questions. I have questions that I randomly ask you, just randomly throughout the week, the months, the days, the it's kind of hard to believe, years that we have come to know each other. They're now plural and counting.
Yes.
Amy has promised me that she will never leave my life. She's like my wife forever.
You're stuck with me.
So you grew up in a tiny little town on the east side of Abilene.
Mm-hmm. A farming community called Hamby. Hamby, Texas, Hamby. It was named after the postal worker there. We had 800 people. When I lived there, there was an elementary school, 3 churches on the same street, a United Methodist Church, a Baptist Church, and a Church of Christ, and a prison.
All on the same street.
The prison was further out. Actually, it was closer to my house than it was to the churches.
Oh, that explains so much.
It was built while I was a kid, actually, but that was really good for the economy because the school eventually closed. And it's a wheat community. People plant wheat and some cotton, and the school closed, and all of the kids then were bused to the big metropolitan of Clyde, Texas, which has 3,000 people in it. But it was about a 20-mile drive, and so the close of the school was really difficult, so the prison actually helped. But Abilene is the big city. It has grown out toward Hamby now to where Hamby is almost part of Abilene, but that was not the case when I lived there.
Nor was it the case when I went to college there.
Right.
Yeah, so For those of you who didn't know, I had a horrible year in Abilene. It was
I'm sorry.
PTSD. I went to
He
McMurray,
went to McMurray, Amanda. He did not have the experience that you had.
85. Okay, so from Hamby, Texas, please explain to me as quickly as you possibly can and make it fun. How'd you get to Princeton? Like, how does a girl from Hamby decide, like, I'm going to go to Princeton for seminary?
Okay, yeah, I can make that fairly quick. So when I discerned a call to ministry, I was looking at a couple of different schools, and I knew nothing about seminaries or about my own theology, really. I mean, I knew what I believed, but I didn't know where that fit. So I applied to Asbury in Kentucky, and I applied to Princeton. And part of the story that I told, I think last week, was when I went to visit Princeton. I actually visited Asbury in the same weekend. So like I flew to Kentucky, saw Asbury, flew to Princeton, saw Princeton, and then came home. And at Kentucky, it was very much a familiar experience in that these were Southern people, and they were happy to see me. They picked me up from the airport. They held my hand. We're so glad you've been accepted. We really hope you come here. This is where you would be. This is what your life would be like. We really hope that you come with us. And I was like, oh, this is really nice. Like, this is really, I think I'd like to be at a place so comfortable. And then I flew directly to New Jersey, and you heard the story about how I got lost. I got lost on the train. It was 10:30 at night. I couldn't get inside. So I finally made it to the place where I was supposed to stay. And I got a good night's sleep, and I showed up for my appointment with the student who was supposed to walk me around campus. She'd slept in and forgotten. So like I didn't have a guide. I was walking around this Ivy League campus all by myself. I was just kind of sneaking into classes and sitting and listening, trying to hear the professors and get a sense of the place. And I finally did get to talk to someone in admissions, and I'd already been admitted. And of course, it's New Jersey. So they were kind of like, come if you want to. Take it or leave it. Like, you have a place here, but if you don't come, no big deal, you know. It was just completely different. So I grabbed some lunch, and I went back to the train station to go back to the airport, and I realized, I felt God was speaking to me, saying, you could go to a place that's comfortable, or you could go to a place where you're really going to have to figure some things out. And Hamby, Texas is a far cry from New Jersey and Manhattan, which is where I ended up having an internship. So in my middle year, my second year, I was in New York City twice a week. I took the train to the subway and got on the Upper West Side over by Broadway, and it was really great because I knew nothing about that culture, and I had to figure it out. So that's how I got there.
So for those of you who don't know, Princeton's a Presbyterian school, right?
Yeah.
And we have a friend that we both know, acquaintance really, not really a friend of ours, but an acquaintance that we know by way of different people who went to school to Princeton as a Methodist and graduated
Are you
as
talking about Tim Kennedy?
No, I'm talking about Denise.
Oh,
Yeah, Denise
yeah.
Carroll.
Yeah, she went after. She went recently.
She went
Yeah.
recently, and she graduated. She went to school as a Methodist and graduated as a Presbyterian. So my question to you is, did you have any moments where you were thinking that Calvinism seems more attractive than Wesleyanism?
Not Calvinism. I was in a really great group of friends. Something that you don't know about me, and this is really kind of telling. Maybe you do know. Maybe it's just something that people can sense about me. I'm a very late bloomer. I did not really have an adolescence. I was. My grandfather said I was never a child. I was born an adult, and so I really had, as is kind of typical of the younger Generation X people, I had a delayed adolescence. And that was in seminary where I actually had friends. Like in college, I had some friends, but it was really all about the work, and so I didn't really have the typical college experience. And so in seminary, I met my people, and they were of all theologies, or they'd been raised in the Lutheran Church and the PCUSA, the Presbyterian Church. They've been, raised in different, the UCC, United Church of Christ. And most people were there in a kind of a middle of the road theology. There were some people who were conservative and some people more liberal, but Princeton is a little more middle of the road than some of the others, which made it a good place for me. And so it was in that group of friends that I realized that I really did need to figure out my theology. And I wrestled with Wesleyanism for a long time, and I really was drawn to Lutheranism for a while, and also later toward the United Church of Christ. And one of the things that I was really drawn to about the United Church of Christ, because I grew up in Hamby, where the Church of Christ is something very different than the United Church of Christ, right? So the Church of Christ does not ordain women still to this day, and the United Church of Christ were among the first to do that, and they were already open and affirming, ordaining people who identified as LGBTQ, and I was really wrestling with, I'm going into this ordination system now where there are still so many restrictions. And I had to ask myself, do I want to just go someplace that's more open already, or do I want to have the conversation and work from within to be a part of that in the United Methodist Church? So I was really drawn to more liberal theologies, but then I found a place within Methodism where I could be authentic.
So in that authenticity, let's track a totally different way. So when you lay down your head at night, which, by the way, is very early, because she gets up very early. So you lay now I lay me down to sleep. What do you dream about? Like when you dream, and I'm not talking about like your technicolor dreams of whatever. I'm talking about like, what do you dream about the church, this church? Like, let me put it to you this way. Let me track it in a totally different way. So earlier this week, we had a lottery of $58 billion, more money than somebody could spend in a lifetime. If you're spending $1,000 a day, think about that, $1.58 billion, and you will not spend enough money from the beginning of your life to the end of it. If you lived 100 years, you could not spend all that money at $1,000 a day. So in that kind of dream, when you dream like, oh, I would get this kind of car, and I'd buy this kind of house, and I would do this kind of good stuff, this altruistic stuff, and I would fund every kid I know's college education, like, what do you dream about the church?
Yeah, about the church. Well, I mean, I've never really been one to dream about those materialistic things. I grew up, like I said, in Hamby and was raised in a single wide trailer house, and so I am happy to have a working car and a nice house for my kids to grow up in. Like, so that piece, it would be fun to think about what to do with money, because the materialistic piece wouldn't be part of that. But if I could give Morningstar what I wanted to with the resources, it would really be moving in the direction that we already are, which is to be turning out into the community, but to enable us to do that in a way that would be really fun, and perhaps do some things that could make some money, but you have to spend money to make money, right? But to do some social enterprising with our mission, to take what we already do with the food pantry that Joyce is now leading, or the Ramp Project, or Camino, and to have ways to be in community that would also generate income, like a cafe, or like we've talked about your idea before I got here, a laundromat, things that will address people's basic needs, but also give us a reason to be in contact with them and combine some of the love that we have for our neighbors with some just human stuff. I would like Morningstar to be more hands-on in the community in everyday ways, but it takes money to set that up. Does that make sense?
So, where's wine?
Thank you, my love. An Americano.
What is your drink of choice when you go to? For those of you who don't know, Amy and I share an affinity for a beverage called coffee.
Yes. Yes, we do.
An affinity for a drink called coffee. What is your favorite coffee of choice?
Lately I've been drinking coffee black. But Jason, what is this? My husband is the best gift giver in the world. He pays attention, and he orders now. We're that couple. He orders for me now because he knows things that I will like that I wouldn't even think to order. So what is this now?
Salted caramel cream cold brew with a splash of cream.
Salted caramel cream cold brew. So that's my favorite lately. But if I was just going to a coffee shop to enjoy a cup of coffee with a friend, just a cafe au lait, just really good coffee with some milk is good. I love New Orleans. Add some beignet to that, and we're really doing well.
So, well, it kind of makes me wonder, so you've been to New Orleans because you know about beignets and cafe au lait.
Yeah.
And cafe au lait, like she said, is just coffee and steamed milk. Let's get that right, steamed milk. Where else have you traveled throughout the world?
So again, grew up very humbly. So I did not set foot on a plane until I was 21. I went to Alaska. It was so fun. I've been to Alaska twice on work trips, mission trips, working with kids in Alaska. Went to Juneau and to Auk Bay. It's really beautiful places in Alaska. I've been to several places in the U.S. throughout college as well for different conferences. I've been to Ohio. I traveled with friends in seminary. This is a great story. My first time out of the country. So part of going to Princeton, right? Part of being in that part of the world, I said, I need a passport because it's going to be a lot easier for me to travel now than being from Abilene, Texas, where you take that little plane to Dallas before you can go anywhere. I need a passport. So I got my passport ready. And the first year of seminary, for those of you who have not been to seminary, is really hard. At least where I went, it was really hard. There were definitely some classes that were they're trying to get me to fail so that I will drop out. It was really tough. And on top of that, you have this whole deconstruction of faith that you're supposed to be doing so that you can rebuild it. And so we made those close friends. And one of my very close friends to this day is Jennifer Grundler. She's a Lutheran. She works at Luther Seminary now. And toward the beginning of our finals in that first semester, our finals were after Christmas. That's just the way that the semester works. So we were starting to prepare so we wouldn't have to do so much work when we got back from Christmas. And she said, "Hey, do you want to go to the Bahamas with me in January?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to go to the Bahamas with you." She found 180 round trip tickets, $180 round trip tickets. So that's something that even seminarians could afford, right? And so that was our motivation. We came back from Christmas, we studied really hard, we took our finals, and then we went, the two of us, to the Bahamas. And that was the best time. We were so tired. Talking about going to bed early. Here we are, two women in their young 20s, going to bed at 9 o'clock at night in the Bahamas because we were so worn out. But we had a good time on the beach. So I did that. And then as far as mission trips, I've been to Guatemala. I've been to Africa, Zimbabwe. I've been to Bethlehem and Jerusalem. That was actually the same trip to Africa. We went to Africa and then we went to Jerusalem and Bethlehem. So that was crazy. It was like a 10-day trip where we did both. So I've been to those places. And then just, California, Michigan, Oregon. Yeah, Colorado. Yeah. But the big ones are Africa, Guatemala, Bahamas, and Tel Aviv. That's a scary airport, y'all. Just if you're going to go, talk to me. It's a scary airport.
So you grew up in Hamby, and when you're watching the news from Abilene, the 3 stations, the 4, I guess you had 4. I can remember Abilene when there was only 2 stations.
In my lifetime, yes, there were 4 stations in Abilene. Yeah.
So they refer to the area because these are stations that broadcast far and wide, like they broadcast all the way to Snyder, which is like 75, 100 miles away. And then like Colorado City down almost to Big Springs, like
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So like
It's
just
a pretty
these-
big area.
Yeah, it's a big area. And so what they say is, something like, broadcasting to West Texas and the big country, or the big country in West Texas or something, And so when you grow up listening to that over and over and over and over again, you think Hamby is West Texas.
Yeah.
But then you come to find out that, 600 miles away.
Yeah, that was actually a shock when we moved to El Paso. And what was that, Jason? 2019. It was 2019. So year Olivia was born. And I would say, I grew up in Abilene. It was very clear to me that Abilene was not West Texas from the perspective of people who grew up in El Paso. So yeah, in Abilene, you are of the opinion that you are growing up in West Texas. You're still in the oil fields. There's still connection with Midland, Odessa. So the Friday Night Lights thing is very real in that part of the country. And so yeah, when I told my cousins who are a bit younger than me, in El Paso, they don't think you grew up in West Texas. They're like, who am I going to fight? Like, I'll fight those people because I grew up in West Texas. So it's very weird to me that that's even a thing. Like, why do people even care if it's West Texas or the big country? But apparently it is a thing.
Oh, it's a thing.
Yeah, but I didn't know that, seriously, until I moved to El Paso.
Okay.
Football.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not even has anything to do with football because you feel this transition at some point in time where you realize the other thing about growing up in Texas is that, if you lived in Austin and you go 50 miles outside of Austin, they call that West Texas. And you can drive for 10 hours and still
Yeah.
be in West Texas and not near any border.
Yeah, that is part of the thing. Texas is so big. But Sherry has a point. I think the affinity for football is one of the reasons that people in the area where I grew up consider themselves to be part of West Texas because it is a big deal. Doesn't matter the size of the school. Football is a big deal.
I still have questions, but most of them are inappropriate. So anyways, yes, Elaine Ham.
That's a great question.
Elaine Ham has asked who cooks at your house for those online.
Mostly I do, because I grew up cooking for my family with the help of my mom. I have 3 younger siblings. But Jason does cook certain things, like if we're going to have grilled cheese sandwiches, the kids request that Jason makes the grilled cheese sandwiches because he uses more butter than I do. If we're going to have hot dogs, he'll pull out the grill and he'll grill the hot dogs. So it's usually me, but we plan the meals together. He does the shopping.
What's
And I
your
do cooking.
specialty?
Well, the kids say spaghetti and meatballs because that's what they really like
Yeah, but
right
what's
now.
your specialty? Like
Which I
this
really
is
like.
the dish that you're like warms the.
That's a great question. I don't know. Right now, it's also functional. We use the crock pot a lot because we have 3 little mouths to feed. Jason, what do I really like to cook? We don't cook adult food in our house. That's probably true. I really like cooking Mexican food because that's what I grew up cooking. It does taste different than growing up in West Texas, but that's what I really love to do is to cook Mexican food.
Anybody else?
I love to feed people. I love a full house, and I love to feed people because that's what I grew up with. And when Jason and I met, he was the director of housing at McMurray, and so we had college students in our home all of the time, big groups of college students, and that's something that we actually miss here. We haven't had that now in 4 years, and I loved cooking for large groups of people. I'm wondering, how are we going to fit all of these young people into the house right now? That was a really fun thing. So that's one thing that I think we could work on a bit.
So how could Morningstar, being relatively far away from campus,
Yeah.
bridge that gap of?
It's a great question. It can't be you or me. It can't be the staff. It's going to have to be a mission that God gives people in the congregation. We can create a place for our college students. That's not a problem. But it can't be something that we add to the list of things that we're already doing as a staff. It's going to have to be motivated by people in the congregation.
Gotcha.
But you could come to our house because we love college students.
So anybody else? Any questions, comments, concerns?
Really?
This is your chance.
No question.
Maybe another,
There's Denise.
yeah, Denise. So Denise Armfield has asked us, how seriously did you think about going into social work?
Very seriously. I actually, one of the reasons that I applied to Princeton is they had a dual program with an MSW that you could get through Rutgers. So it would be 4 years, but you would graduate with 2 masters. And so I was accepted into that program. And then when I got there, they said the program was folding. So I started focusing on the MDiv and trying to figure out another way of doing things. And then they have since rebooted that program. But at that point, I really felt like God perhaps used the MSW to get me there. And I was starting to really discern a call to be more involved in the congregations. But one of the reasons I was reluctant was kind of like, okay, God, I'll go to seminary, but I'm not going to be ordained. Like, I want the education, but I'm not going to be ordained. Then I got there and I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'll be ordained, but I'm not going to lead a church because I want to be working with more social work activities. I want to be connecting. I thought about being a deacon for a while because I want to be connecting people with the needs of the community. So when I graduated, I was actually not appointed to a church. That was before that was a requirement for your provisional years. I was appointed to a medical care mission, a clinic. This was before the Affordable Care Act, a clinic that served only people who did not have insurance. I knew the executive director. We'd worked on other projects before I went to seminary because I did not go to seminary straight out of college. And so he said, I really want to bring somebody on board that has a spiritual component, but also can do some of this social work type things. So that was my appointment. So I did that for a year, and then I was appointed also part-time. So I did a church part-time, and then I had the full-time position there at the clinic for 3 more years. And then I was sent to Aldersgate and Abilene. So it was that sense of, I'm just going to be outside of the church. But then when I got there and I started working in the community, I felt like God was saying, no, you need to be in a local church as well. And it was during those years that I figured out the church can be about these things. The church can be about serving other people in real and authentic ways. They just need pastors who will be willing to stand in that gap. So I thought about it very seriously because I didn't see how a pastor of a church could do the kind of things that I've made my whole career about doing with local churches.
Okay. Hey, so when I say tortillas, flour or corn?
Both.
What when I say tacos, steak or pork?
Steak.
When I say chili, red or green?
Both. Christmas.
Christmas. Yeah, you're New Mexican now.
Yes, Christmas. Yes. Actually, I lean a little toward the red, but I like to keep my options. Gotta keep my options open.
Okay. When I say mountains, Oregon or Franklin?
That's not fair. Oregon. Anything else? Does anybody have any other burning questions?
Well,
Any what questions? Decent questions.
well, okay. So one last, I'll go here, and
Okay.
then I'm going to end it somewhere else. I have an affinity for music. Your husband has an affinity for music.
Yeah.
Mine is live. His, not that it isn't live, but he also collects records.
Yeah.
It's like his big deal is records. So who was your first concert?
Gosh. I think I went to a concert with my parents when I was young. It may have been Alabama, actually. I think so. I think it was Alabama.
Okay, who was the first concert that you wanted to go to?
I cannot remember. I do love concerts as well. I think it may have been Bon Jovi.
Oh,
Yeah, it may have been Bon Jovi. I've seen Bon Jovi a couple of times, once with Jason. My dad loves music too. He's an artist and a musician, and he raised me on like the Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel, and I still love that era of music, and Jason does too, so that's good. And we just kind of, with our kids, we just try to expose them to all kinds of things. Yeah, the 70s music, we love 70s music. Yeah, so I like it too. I'm not a musician. I'm a good, solid alto choir member. I could do that. I'm not a soloist, but I do appreciate music, and there's music going on in our house all the time. All the time.
It's been a while since I've sat with you on the front row, but when I first started to sit with you on the front row, what I thought was funny is that you do sing the songs, but you don't sing them. You kind of like mouth the words. Like, is there a reason why you're saving? I guess you're saving your voice for for all the rest.
Yeah, I sing more today. If it's a range that's comfortable for me, then I'll sing louder. But I do a lot of talking on Sundays. So I have to save that.
So the joke between us is that I'm the little brother that you never wanted or needed.
That's what you said, but I have two little brothers.
Yeah.
So, no, you are more like the big brother that I always wanted because I was the oldest, remember? And that's fun. I like being the oldest because I like being in charge. But I also always wanted someone to look out for me. So I'm glad to have you as a big brother now.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
That's nice. Well, this has been Parables on the Impromptu, very quick and fast. Yeah. And
you didn't ask any juicy questions. I'm impressed. If you want to know the dirt, see me after church.
Well, you were like so nice. And you are so nice. It's so hard sometimes. Well, especially publicly. I give her a hard time.
You give me a hard time.
I give her a hard time all the time. So.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Next week, we are going to have, I hope we'll have a guest who's often with us online, but who will be here live. So I'm going to wait to reveal that. And then in a couple of weeks, we will kind of do a walkthrough of.
Well, so just to take it back a little bit, next week should be a really big, exciting Sunday here at Morningstar in so many ways. We'll reveal some stuff. And so it's a great Sunday to come to church. If you haven't been to church in a while, it's a good Sunday to come to church next Sunday. And then hopefully in a couple of weeks with all these technological things that we'll be revealing, we'll reveal a really big technological advance going in a direction and a frontier we've never gone before. So I'm really excited to share that with the congregation.
In our website. Yeah, we're going to be launching a new website, and it's going to be really exciting. So we're going to spend some time kind of talking about how everything we do tells our story, which is what Parables is about, right? So come back in 2 weeks for that.
So, well, thank you, Amy, for allowing me to talk to you this Sunday, and thank you all for being here, and tell your friends they missed a good one.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all. More questions from the congregation. Covered well. See you Wednesday, my friend. I cleaned that thing out today. That's why all the pens are falling. Cleaned up. Oh, okay. All right. Let me know if you want me to bring anything. Sounds good. Thank you, Larry.
Me too.